The house smelled of roasted chicken and garlic bread, but I couldn't shake the heavy feeling in my chest as I sat at the dinner table with my family. My sister Claire sat across from me, smiling a little too brightly, trying to keep things normal. Beside her was her husband, Marcus, who filled the room with his loud laugh, the kind that sounded more like a warning than joy. And next to me, sitting quietly with his fork untouched, was my 5-year-old nephew. Everyone else was eating, passing bowls of mashed potatoes and salad, but Ethan kept staring at his plate. His little hands rested in his lap, his face pale. When Claire leaned down to nudge him, he whispered so softly I almost didn't hear it. "I'm not hungry." The words didn't seem like a normal child's excuse. There was no whining, no pouting, no mischief. Just fear. His eyes flicked quickly toward Marcus, and then down at the table again. Marcus slammed his fork against his plate, the sharp sound making Ethan flinch. "Kid doesn't know how good he's got it," Marcus said with a laugh that was too loud for the small room. "When I was his age, I would have killed for food like this." Claire forced a smile, her voice light but strained. "He's just tired, that's all." She reached for Ethan's shoulder, but he pulled back slightly. She didn't press. I kept watching. My stomach twisted. I'd noticed little things before. How Ethan sometimes had bruises Claire explained away. How he never wanted to sit too close to Marcus. How his laughter seemed to vanish the moment Marcus entered a room. Tonight, it all felt heavier, clearer. I tried to ease the tension. "Ethan, buddy, do you want something else? Maybe some bread instead of chicken." Ethan's lips trembled as he shook his head. "No, please." His small voice cracked, and he leaned toward me as if hoping I could shield him from something no one else wanted to see. Marcus reached over to pour himself another glass of wine, his movements rough, careless. The glass clinked hard against the bottle, making Ethan flinch again. Marcus smirked, as if he enjoyed it. Claire cleared her throat quickly. "Daniel, don't make a big deal. He's fine." But he wasn't fine. I could see it in his eyes, the way they darted to the side, waiting, afraid. I forced myself to chew the piece of bread on my plate, but my mouth was dry. Something was wrong, terribly wrong, and everyone seemed willing to pretend otherwise. As the chatter continued around the table, I leaned closer to Ethan. He didn't look at me, just kept his gaze on his untouched food. His lips moved slowly, almost as if it hurt to speak. "Uncle Daniel," he whispered, his voice shaking, "please don't make me eat." And that was when I knew this wasn't about dinner at all. When I was a kid, Claire was my shadow. I was 3 years older, but she followed me everywhere, trusted me with everything. After school, she would run to me first, even before our parents. I always felt like it was my job to protect her, and for most of our childhood I did. We lost our parents too young, and that loss tied us even closer. I thought nothing could break that bond, but life has a way of pulling people apart. After the funeral, Claire changed. She was lonely, vulnerable, and that was when Marcus came into her life. He was the kind of man who could charm a room in seconds. Tall, well-dressed, smiling as if the world already belonged to him. At first, even I wanted to believe he was good for her. She needed comfort, someone to take care of her. But underneath the polished smile, I saw something darker. His eyes didn't soften when he looked at her. His laugh often had an edge. He spoke over her in conversations, corrected her in public. Little things, but they built a picture. Claire married him quickly. Too quickly. I remember trying to talk to her, telling her maybe she should slow down. She brushed me off, saying I was just being overprotective. She wanted to start over, to build a new life. Soon after, she stopped calling me as much. The visits grew less frequent. It was as if Marcus had built a wall around her, and I was no longer welcome inside. Every time I tried to come close, I was reminded I didn't belong. Marcus always made subtle comments, jokes with sharp edges. "Not everyone can be successful," he once said when I told him about my job struggles. I laughed it off, but the truth stung. My career had never taken off the way I hoped. I bounced between projects, never quite finding my place. Add to that a relationship that fell apart after years of trying, and I found myself standing on shaky ground. Marcus knew it. He used it. He made me feel small, like I was the brother who never measured up. Claire leaned on him more and more, even when he hurt her with words. She excused his behavior, saying, "He just gets stressed," or, "You don't know him like I do." She stopped reaching out for my advice. She stopped letting me be her protector. And in that silence, I felt powerless. But Ethan became the only light left in all of this. From the moment I first held him as a baby, I felt a new kind of responsibility. He looked at me with big, trusting eyes, and I knew I wanted to be the kind of uncle who showed up no matter what. As he grew older, that bond deepened. He laughed freely around me, asked me endless questions, held my hand tighter than he did anyone else's. He made me feel needed again. That's why the changes in him broke me piece by piece. It started small. A bruise on his arm that Claire said came from falling off his bike. A nervous glance at Marcus when he spilled a drink. The way he froze whenever there was a sudden noise, his body stiff as if waiting for something to hit him. Each time, I asked Claire about it. Each time, she had an explanation ready. Kids fall. Kids are clumsy. I wanted to believe her, because the alternative was too hard to face. But deep down, I knew. I knew something was happening in that house that no child should ever endure. I would lie awake some nights thinking about it, angry at myself for not doing more. But every time I tried, Claire shut me out. "You're imagining things," she'd say. "Don't make problems where there are none." And so I became the outsider again, left with my doubts and my guilt. Now, sitting at that dinner table, watching Ethan refuse his food with terror in his voice, I realized something else. This wasn't just another family dinner. This wasn't another night I could let slip by while convincing myself it wasn't my place. I could see in Ethan's eyes that he was reaching out to me, begging in the only way a 5-year-old could. If I ignored this moment, if I walked away again, I might lose him forever. I didn't know how, and I didn't know what it would cost, but I knew one thing with absolute clarity. This dinner might be my last. After dinner, the house felt heavy with silence. Plates were cleared, glasses clinked faintly in the kitchen, but my attention was fixed on Ethan. He had pushed food around his plate the entire meal, barely touching anything. Now, as everyone moved to the living room, I noticed him slipping away, holding his stomach. I followed quietly, and soon I heard the sound of retching from the bathroom down the hall. My heart sank. I pushed the door open gently, and there he was, kneeling over the toilet, his small body shaking as he vomited. His tiny hands clutched the edge of the seat, his face pale and damp with sweat. "Ethan," I whispered, crouching beside him. "It's okay, I'm here." He wiped his mouth with the back of his sleeve and looked at me with wide, frightened eyes. That was when I noticed it. His shirt collar had slipped down his shoulder, and there, dark against his skin, was a deep purple bruise. It wasn't the kind of mark a kid got from bumping into furniture. It was deliberate, ugly. I reached out, my voice shaking. "What happened, buddy? Did you fall?" Ethan's lip trembled. He glanced toward the door before whispering, so faintly I almost missed it. "He gets angry when I eat too slow." The words cut through me like a knife. I froze, my chest tightening. I didn't even need him to say who he was. I already knew. Before I could respond, heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. The bathroom door slammed open, and Marcus filled the frame, his face twisted with irritation. "What the hell is going on here?" he barked, yanking Ethan up by the arm so roughly the boy whimpered. I stood quickly. "He's sick. He needs rest, not." "Not what?" Marcus snapped, glaring at me. "Not me taking care of my own kid? Or do you think you know better?" I clenched my fists, forcing myself to stay calm. "I saw the bruise, Marcus. Don't tell me he fell off a bike. I'm not blind." Marcus's lips curled into a cold smile. "So now you're interrogating him? Is that it? Trying to turn him against me?" "I'm trying to protect him." I shot back, my voice rising. That's when Claire appeared in the doorway, her face pale, her hands trembling. "What's happening?" Marcus didn't miss a beat. "Your brother thinks I'm abusing our son. He's filling the boy's head with lies." I turned to her desperately. "Claire, look at him. Look at Ethan. He's terrified, he's bruised. Doesn't that tell you something?" Her eyes darted to Ethan, who clung to Marcus's side, too scared to speak. For a second, I saw something flicker in her face, fear, doubt, but then she shook her head. "Daniel, you've gone too far. You're always accusing Marcus. You twist everything. Claire, please. Enough." Marcus barked, his voice booming through the hall. "You've overstayed your welcome. Get out." I looked at Ethan one last time, his eyes pleading silently, but Marcus pulled him closer like a shield. Claire stood between us, shaking her head. My chest burned with helpless rage. I left the house with my heart pounding, the sound of the door slamming behind me echoing like a gunshot. The night air hit my face, but it didn't cool the fire inside me. I walked aimlessly, fists tight, anger boiling into despair. When I finally got home, I sat on my bed, staring at the dark ceiling. My thoughts raced in circles. Ethan's whisper, the bruise, Marcus's smug grin, Claire's denial. Every image clawed at me. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ethan's pale face, heard him whispering, "Please don't make me eat." The guilt gnawed at me. What if something worse happened tomorrow? What if tonight had been my only chance to stop it? I couldn't keep pretending this was just Claire's problem, or that Ethan would somehow be okay. By dawn, one thing was clear. I had to act. Even if it meant losing my sister, even if the whole family turned against me, I couldn't stay silent anymore. Ethan needed. The next week, I found myself standing outside Ethan's school, waiting by the fence like a stranger who didn't belong. The bell rang, and children rushed out laughing, backpacks bouncing, voices high with freedom. But Ethan walked slower, his head low, clutching his bag as if it were a shield. I called his name softly. "Ethan." He froze when he heard my voice. For a moment, I thought he might run into my arms the way he used to. But instead, he glanced around nervously, his small shoulders tightening. "Uncle Daniel," he whispered, but he didn't come closer. I crouched down, trying to smile, trying to look safe. "Hey, buddy. I just wanted to check on you. How are you feeling?" He looked at the ground, then shook his head. "I can't talk." His voice was barely a breath. "Why not?" I asked gently, his lips pressed together, eyes darting toward the street where parents were picking up their kids. He leaned closer just for a second. He told me not to. Then he pulled away, walking quickly toward the car where Marcus stood waiting. Marcus's eyes locked on mine, cold and sharp. He put a heavy hand on Ethan's shoulder and steered him away without a word. That night, I couldn't let it go. I started writing down everything I noticed, times, dates, small details. The bruises, the fear, the way Ethan avoided eye contact. I snapped pictures when I could, kept notes of every strange story Claire gave me. It felt wrong, spying on my own family, but I knew it was the only way I'd ever have proof. It didn't take long for Marcus to notice. He called me one evening, his tone calm but full of poison. "You know, Daniel, it's getting creepy. You hanging around, watching my kid, writing things down. Maybe you need to get a life. You're obsessed." I gripped the phone until my knuckles turned white. "I'm making sure Ethan's safe." Marcus laughed, a low, cruel sound. "He's fine. What he doesn't need is an uncle filling his head with nonsense." Then he hung up, leaving me shaking with fury. Word spread through the family. At gatherings, I felt the shift in the air. Some cousins pulled me aside, whispering that they'd noticed Marcus's temper too, the way he snapped at Claire in public or drank too much at parties. Others rolled their eyes, saying I was meddling, stirring trouble, refusing to let my sister live her life. The divide was sharp, and I was stuck in the middle, feeling more alone than ever. One evening, I caught Claire alone outside her house, standing in the yard with her arms wrapped tightly around herself. I walked up slowly, careful not to scare her. "Claire," I said softly, "we need to talk." She sighed, her eyes tired. "Daniel, I don't want to fight again." "I'm not here to fight," I said. "I'm here because I'm worried. About Ethan. About you." Her lips trembled. For the first time, she didn't snap back, didn't defend Marcus right away. Instead, her eyes filled with tears. He can be cruel sometimes." Her voice broke. "But what choice do I have? He provides everything. The house, the bills. I can't do it alone." I stepped closer, my chest aching. "Claire, you don't have to stay. There are shelters, programs. I'll help you. We can figure it out." She shook her head quickly, wiping her face. "You don't understand. He'd never let me leave. And if I try, he'll take Ethan away. He'll make sure I lose everything." I wanted to shake her, scream at her to see the truth. But instead, I just stood there, helpless. She turned away, leaving me with the weight of her fear pressing down on my chest. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the piles of notes and photos I had collected. My hands shook as I flipped through them. This was evidence, proof of what I already knew. But taking it to the authorities would mean betraying Claire. It would mean ripping apart what little trust she still had in me. Yet if I stayed silent, Ethan would keep suffering. I was trapped between love for my sister and the desperate need to protect her son. The decision weighed on me every day. And then, one afternoon, Ethan gave me the answer in the simplest way a child could. I had stopped by the school again, pretending to drop off a book Claire said Ethan left at my place. When I found him, he slipped me a folded piece of paper without saying a word. His hands trembled as he pushed it into mine. Later, sitting in my car, I unfolded it carefully. It was a drawing, done with the shaky lines of a child. Ethan had drawn himself behind bars, tears streaming down his face. In the corner stood a tall figure with angry eyes, holding a stick. And beside the bars, he had drawn me, his uncle, standing on the outside, reaching for him. My throat tightened as I stared at it. No words, no explanations, just the truth drawn in crayons. Ethan was crying for help the only way he knew how. I pressed the paper to my chest and closed my eyes. The choice was clear now. If I didn't act, I would lose him, and I couldn't live with that. The call came late at night. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, and when I saw Claire's name flashing across the screen, my stomach dropped. I answered, and all I heard was her sobbing. "Daniel, please, you have to come. It's bad. Please hurry." Her voice cracked, full of terror. I didn't ask questions. I grabbed my keys and ran out the door. The drive felt endless, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight they ached. My heart pounded with every turn, each second heavier than the last. When I reached the house, the lights were on, glowing harshly through the windows. I ran inside without knocking. The first thing I saw was Ethan on the floor, clutching his arm, his face pale with pain. His small body shook as he whimpered. My chest burned with rage. Marcus stood nearby, calm as ever, his shirt half undone, a glass of whiskey still in his hand. "He fell," Marcus said quickly, his voice smooth. "Clumsy kid tripped on the stairs. Happens all the time." I dropped to my knees beside Ethan. His arm was swelling, his eyes wet with tears. He looked at me, terrified, as if I were the only safe thing in the room. I stroked his hair gently. I'm here, buddy. You're okay. I've got you. Then I stood. My blood boiled as I turned to Marcus. For years, I'd held back, kept my anger under control, but seeing Ethan broken on the floor snapped something inside me. You did this, I said, my voice shaking with fury. Marcus smirked. You're insane. Always have been. Making up stories, turning everyone against me. Look at him, kids fall. That's life. No, I growled, stepping closer. Kids don't live in fear every single day. Kids don't flinch every time their father moves. You've been hurting him, and I won't let you do it anymore. He set down his glass and squared his shoulders, meeting my glare. Careful, Daniel. You're on thin ice. You attack me, and I'll make sure you never see him again. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed him by the collar and shoved him hard against the wall. His glass shattered on the floor. You touch him again. I spat, my face inches from him, and I swear to God. Daniel, stop. Claire's voice cut through the air, shrill and broken. She ran forward, clutching my arm. Her face was streaked with tears, her hands trembling. Please. Don't. He'll twist this. He'll make it worse. I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw something raw in her eyes. Not denial, not excuses, but the truth. She sank to the floor, her sobs shaking her whole body. He's been hurting me too, she whispered. Not just words, not just shouting. He hits me. He controls everything. I'm trapped. The room spun around me. All the years of suspicion, of half-truths and excuses, crashed into reality. It wasn't just Ethan. Claire had been living in this nightmare too. Before I could respond, a loud knock rattled the door. Then a voice called out, "Police! Open up!" Marcus stiffened, his face tightening. A neighbor must have heard the shouting and called them. He smoothed his hair quickly, straightened his shirt, and forced a smile. Perfect timing, he muttered. Watch and learn how a real man handles this. The officers stepped inside, scanning the scene. What's going on here? One asked firmly. Marcus spread his arms, his tone suddenly charming. Officer, thank God you're here. My brother-in-law here, he's unstable. He barged in, started attacking me. My son fell, that's all. Just a misunderstanding. The officer turned to me. Is that true? I stepped forward, my hands still shaking. No, it's not. My voice cracked, but I forced myself to continue. I have proof. Months of it. Pictures of bruises. Notes. Patterns. Everything. He's been abusing them, both my nephew and my sister. Marcus's smile faltered, his eyes narrowing at me with pure hatred. Check my phone, I told the officers, pulling it from my pocket. It's all there. As the police began to question him, Marcus's charm started to slip. His answers stumbled, his temper flashing through cracks in his mask. Claire stood behind me, clutching her arms, nodding weakly when the officers asked her questions. And Ethan, he crawled to me, his tiny body pressing against my leg. He buried his face in my side, shaking, too scared to speak but desperate to hide behind me. I rested my hand on his back, feeling the rise and fall of his fragile breaths. That moment burned into me, the boy who once whispered, "Please don't make me eat," now clinging to me as if I were the only shield he had left. As the officers led Marcus out of the house, his voice booming with curses and threats, I didn't let go of Ethan. I held him close, my eyes locked on the man who had tried to break them both. For the first time in years, Marcus didn't look powerful. He looked small. And for the first time, the weeks after that night felt like a blur. Marcus was arrested, but the real fight had only just begun. Court dates, lawyers, endless questions. Every detail of Claire's life and Ethan's pain was brought into the open. It was hard, messy, and exhausting. Marcus tried everything to twist the truth. He dressed neatly, spoke politely, and told the court I was a jealous brother who hated him from the start. But the evidence I had collected spoke louder than his lies. The photos of bruises, the notes, even Ethan's drawings. Each piece painted a picture that Marcus could no longer hide from. Claire's voice, trembling but steady, told the court the truth about the nights of shouting, the threats, the blows she had hidden for years. Watching her stand there, fragile but brave, filled me with a pride I hadn't felt in a long time. The judge listened carefully, weighing every word. When the verdict finally came, Marcus was found guilty of abuse. Restrictions were placed to keep him away from Claire and Ethan. For the first time in years, they were free of him. Freedom, however, didn't mean everything was fixed overnight. Claire carried years of scars inside her. She began therapy, and at first it was hard for her to even speak. But slowly, week by week, she started to find her voice again. The woman who once hid behind Marcus's shadow began to stand taller, her laughter returning in small bursts. For Ethan, healing came in quieter ways. He clung to me often, not wanting me to leave his side. At dinner, he still hesitated at first, his fork hovering over his plate as if waiting for someone to shout at him. But when he looked up and saw only calm faces, only love, he would take a bite. Each meal became a small victory. I learned patience, never pushing, always letting him move at his own pace. And slowly, he began to eat without fear. I found myself stepping into a role I never expected. I became more than just an uncle. I was Ethan's safe place, the one he could run to when nightmares woke him, the one who listened when words were too heavy for a child to carry alone. For so long, I had felt powerless, but now I understood. Protecting him was the most important thing I could ever do. Claire and I began to mend our own bond. The walls Marcus had built between us started to crumble. One night, as we sat together after putting Ethan to bed, she took my hand. Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry I didn't listen," she whispered. "You tried to warn me, and I pushed you away." I squeezed her hand gently. "You don't need to apologize. You survived. That's what matters. And now we start again." That night felt like a turning point. For the first time in years, I felt like I had my sister back. Our family wasn't perfect. The scars were still there, deep and lasting. But there was also hope now, a sense that the worst was behind us. We began to gather again, me, Claire, and Ethan, around the table that had once been filled with fear. There was laughter again, quiet at first, then louder, freer. The road ahead was still long, but we were walking it together. And that, more than anything, felt like healing. The house felt different that evening. The air was calm, almost peaceful, as the three of us sat around the table. No shouting, no fear, just the quiet sound of plates and the soft hum of the kitchen clock. Ethan sat beside me, closer than ever. His plate was full, the way it should be for a growing boy. I watched him carefully, not wanting to rush him, just letting him feel the moment. Claire set down a bowl of vegetables, her smile small but real, the kind of smile that comes when hope is slowly finding its way back. Ethan looked at me, his little hands gripping his fork. For a second, I saw hesitation in his eyes, the old habit of waiting, of bracing himself. But then something shifted. His lips curved into the faintest smile, and in a soft voice he said, "I'm hungry." The words were simple, but they carried the weight of everything we had been through. I felt my throat tighten, my eyes stinging with tears I didn't try to hide. I smiled back at him, nodding as if to say, "It's okay now. You're safe." Claire reached across the table, her hand brushing mine, a silent thank you in her touch. For the first time in a long time, it felt like a family again, not broken, not afraid, but healing. As I sat there, watching Ethan take his first bite without fear, I realized something deep in my chest. Hunger isn't always about food. Sometimes it's the hunger to feel safe, to be loved, to finally be free. Hey besties. Thanks for watching till the end. This story showed how love, courage, and truth can break even the darkest chain. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, drop a comment, and of course,